A note to listeners, the following podcast contains content that may not be suitable for all audiences.
First of all, let me tell you that I have not seen in a long time, maybe ever, as many catastrophic injuries as is listed in this medical examiner's report. It's amazing to me. It really is. There really wasn't any part of his body that was not affected. That's the other thing that you can kind of tell sometimes when you look at the injuries or the pictures. If it's an accident, say a truck hit him with the forces that we see in these injuries, there would be markings. There should be markings from that truck on him. So, I mean, it's just an incredible medical examiner's report. It's one I haven't seen for a long time like this.
You are listening to Partners in True Crime. We are your hosts, Rob and Cindy Dorfman. Hi, everyone. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts, even if it's one word.
And please subscribe to our website, www.partnersintruecrime. Follow us on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram to check out our weekly promos. We're also now on YouTube at Partners in True Crime. If you subscribe to our website, you'll be getting weekly emails from us and all kinds of promotions and things that we don't advertise on the podcast. When Noah PRESGROVE was found on the side of the road, law enforcement initially believed that he was the victim of a hit and run.
But after the medical examiner report came out, it led to more questions than answers. The report stated that Noah was actually the victim of blunt force trauma.
So what does that mean? Does it mean that Noah was the victim of foul play? And if so, why? And who would want to hurt him? We have read the medical report, and the extent of Noah's injuries are horrifying. They're way more extensive than if he were just the victim of a hit and run. And we know that there's a lot of speculation about what happened to Noah. There's so many theories out there right now and rumors on the internet, on social media. But we wanted to bring in someone who has experience looking at these kinds of medical reports.
Today, we're going to have Jodi Barth look over the medical examiner's report. Jodi has over 30 years of law enforcement experience.
One of Jodi's expertise is working with highway patrol and hit and run accidents. So let's hear what she has to say about Noah's case.
Okay, everybody, we're back with what happened to Noah PRESGROVE, and we have a very special guest with us. We have Jodi Barth. For people who listen to the Molly and Colt podcast, you'll be familiar with her. You'll be familiar with her voice, but this time you get to see her for some people. And we're very excited to have with her. Just to give you a quick background of Jodi's accolades in her career. She's retired now, but she has about 33 years of law enforcement investigation experience. She was a detective commander, correct? Is that correct?
Yes.
With the Illinois State Police. She was the first female CSI person in Illinois. Was it in Illinois too?
No, just Illinois State Police.
In Illinois State Police. Mm-hmm. And she's got hundreds of death investigations, and she was a deputy coroner. So we wanted to bring Jodi on to kind of take a look at the medical examiner's report for Noah. And also she has because she's kind of got her foot in both camps, both as an investigator and also a deputy coroner and all of that. We thought it was really important to have someone with her type of skill set to come and take a look at this ME report. And we sent it to her a couple days ago. She's been going over it. She's also going to be helping us with some other stuff as well. But Jodi, tell us just a little bit about what you gleaned from that medical examiner's report. I'm curious.
Okay, so first of all, let me tell you that I have not seen in a long time, maybe ever, as many catastrophic injuries as is listed in this medical examiner's report. It's amazing to me. It really is. There really wasn't any part of his body that was not affected. And I mean tremendous crushing type, blunt force type injuries. Just some of the technicalities, what I noticed was that if the body was moved, it was moved shortly after death, because the livor mortis, the lividity in the body was set, and it was set on his posterior side, which means had he been moved when that was set, there would have been signs of that. I don't see that at all. The other thing I don't see in the ME's report is I don't see any mention of post-mortem injuries. So all of the injuries that he sustained while he was alive. He might not have been conscious, I hope he wasn't, but they were all sustained at the same time. In other words, he didn't have some from before or from, hours before and then have another set. Everything happened at one time, it looks like to me. It's clear from the ME's report there were no bullets found in his body, so doesn't appear to be any type of shooting. They all appear to be very crushing or very blunt force type injuries and significant injuries. I mean, very significant. I don't know. I don't want to upset anybody, but one of the things, the very first injury that is listed on the ME's report is what's described as a 4x2 abraded avulsion laceration. And this was on the top left of his head. So the head has a lot of blood vessels in it. I don't know if you have a visualization of what that looks like, the size of it. But when, Rob, you told me there was really no blood at the scene, or very little blood reported at the scene.
That's what we've been told. We don't know. Like, obviously, we haven't seen any of that. I'm sure there's crime scene photographs and stuff that we're not liberty. We don't have, but we don't know. We were told that there wasn't a lot of blood, and they said if it was a car accident, if a car hit him, they said there would have been a lot more blood. A lot.
Can I show you? I did a diagram of that one injury.
Sure.
To scale. Now, I am not an artist, or ever played one. But it was described very vividly as a 4-inch by 2-inch laceration, having a fish-like appearance, which is key to that. Now, to me, this is going to be an ugly fish, but let me just show you. That's the actual size of that one injury on his head.
Wow.
That's huge.
And avulsion means not just the laceration. Avulsion means everything in its path has been taken off down to the skull. It's gone.
Wow.
So tell me this wouldn't be all over the place. I mean, there would, just from this one injury, and then when you add all that other up, it's incredible to me.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to, I'm guessing that it's similar to this because of how it was described, but it's hard to really tell a lot of things without being able to see the injuries or see the photographs.
Yeah. Well, just the dimensions, the measurements, that is the actual measurement.
Those are the actual measurements.
Even if it's, that's pretty significant size. Did it say what part of the head it was in? I can't remember.
Yeah, it's actually right up in here, this part right here. But the left side of his head took a lot of damage, more so than that. His skull was basically crushed. In fact, it broke in two in the back. So, and then everything was fractured. His neck was broken in several places. His back was broken in several places. To me, it looks like the bulk of the injuries were on the left side, but truly they were 360. He had injuries everywhere.
Wow.
I don't know if he was drug through maybe gravel or blacktop. One of the lacerations on his back is described as having black material in it, which could be dirt, could be blacktop, could be a lot of things. But it's not unusual. That's the other thing that you can kind of tell sometimes when you look at the injuries or the pictures. If it's an accident, say a truck hit him with the forces that we see in these injuries, there would be markings. There should be markings from that truck on him. So, I mean, it's just an incredible medical examiner's report. It's one I haven't seen for a long time like this.
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, obviously being with the Illinois State Police, you saw a lot of highway accidents, a lot of deaths on road.
Yes. A lot.
Because there was no, the one thing that the OHP said is that they kind of knew it wasn't a car or truck that hit him from the get-go, because there would be car parts there would be a lot more blood, and there would be a lot more significant injuries relating to the truck or car if it did hit him. Have you ever seen anything like this before?
No. I mean, in hit and run, I've seen a lot of hit and runs and a lot of car accidents and truck accidents. And no, I mean, it's not pristine ever. The scenes aren't ever pristine. there's always something when you're talking about that kind of damage. There's broken glass, there's broken plastic, there's metal, there's tire tracks, there's tread. If he was run over, there'd be tread marks.
And there wasn't any of that. We saw pictures of the street, and there was very little blood.
There's no skid marks or anything.
And nothing.
And this is just one injury. He's injured from the top of his head to his heels on a 360, all the way around, all the extremities, which the extremities weren't damaged as much as the body was. The skull was the worst, and then the body. But it's really brutal.
I mean, if you were the investigator, you're showing up there.
It's horrific. All of it's awful.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the investigator and you're showing up to the scene and you see a body like this, because there's conflicting reports about what he was wearing at the time. Some people said he had shorts on. Some people said he didn't have shorts on. He had 2 mismatched shoes, which we've heard reports on why they were mismatched and stuff like that. But apparently they found him. They didn't, according to what some people said, that he didn't have any clothes on. He just said the shorts were there. So I find it really strange how that was. And some people say he was in a fetal position. Some people say he wasn't. We've heard reports that he wasn't. We were told that maybe the body was moved there. But what would you, in your investigative mind, and after seeing this autopsy report, what do you think happened? Did he has injuries all over his body? Did he get run over by something else?
That's always a possibility, but I find that that the shape of that wound to be interesting. Whenever you see a wound like that, when he calls it a fish-like shape, you know that there's going to be two tail fins back there and something in between. That to me rings. It might be a tool. It might be, giving us the shape of what hit him in the head the first time. Yeah.
Well, we do know that someone had a rifle at the party. We talked a little bit about that when I told you. But there's video of a kid standing off in the background, and he had a rifle. With that, that size that you just showed, it seems like it's almost pretty close to the dimensions of the butt end of a rifle.
Well, and I'll tell you, like I was talking to Cindy, when you see the words laceration in a pathology report, in a medical, most people think of lacerations as cuts. So you automatically think, most people do, that means a stabbing type, a sharp instrument. Lacerations in a medical examiner's report usually means blunt force, not incision. That would be an incision if it was a sharp instrument that made that. So this could have been flared at the end, based on the force of the blow.
Or the angle.
At the end, where the flare is at the end, if it's a fishtail, it could have been that, that could have split just because of the force of the blow and the surface on which it was hit. I'm not ruling out the end of a rifle.
Okay. How about a golf club? How about a end of a golf club? That we've been told that there was golf clubs there. There were Noah's golf clubs. We've heard reports that golf clubs were never recovered at the scene, but we've also been told that there were golf clubs there. Some of them were damaged, that were found that were damaged. What could that possibly be it?
Right now anything's possible because I can't see the wound itself. But it's just a strange type of injury for a traffic accident, being hit by a car. The crushing type injuries, let me just put it this way. If it wasn't a car accident, if he wasn't run over by something, it was a brutal assault. This was not just one blow. It was a hard blow, and it was a devastating blow. But remember, virtually his entire skull is fractured. Every lobe, every bone here.
But that's my question. If this was a traffic accident, hit and run, wouldn't there be something on the ground to validate that?
There should be, yeah. And there should be something showing what made those fractures. In other words, a tire mark if he was run over. There should be those kind of things. Most of what's on his body are abrasion type injuries, and abrasions are scrapes. So they may be bleeding, or sometimes they're not even, they're just like road rash and they're red, but they don't bleed. So it's hard without seeing the pictures. But when they talk about abrasions, those by themselves are usually not serious. He, on the other hand, has all of these little pea-sized and very unusually shaped abrasions all over his body, but especially on his back and buttocks. That's what makes me think he was drugged at some point, somehow over the terrain. But the head injuries and the spine injuries, there was air in his cranium. There was air or gas, but it's usually air in his cranium, air or gas in his spine. That means that those were open to air. Those are devastating injuries. They're very rare.
Could they be from a beating, some kind of physical assault by multiple people?
I mean, sure. I mean, yes. I mean, this could be a tremendous beating, but it was a brutal one. If it was a beating, it had to be very brutal and nonstop. I mean, I've never seen so many bones broken in just a traffic accident, just a single traffic accident. He virtually both shoulder blades were broken. He had I think 6 ribs on one side broken, 3 or 4 on the other side.
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense.
All of his organs.
That doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't there, if he was hit with such force by even a semi, wouldn't there have been a broken mirror or pieces of glass on him? Or something?
You would think. And I can't explain it right now. And like I said, without actually seeing the body, I'm just reading the words, but the injuries are enormous. I can't stress that enough. A simple accident, unless he got hooked up underneath and was, run over several times or something like that. But then you would see evidence of that. You would see the tire marks. You would see you'd have grease even. You'd have probably parts of the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't smell right to me.
Yeah. I think everybody's in agreement with that. I don't think it really makes sense. Another question I had for you, because when was there anything in the report? I can't remember if did they talk about a time of death or an estimated time of death?
No, they did not. They just have the time that he was found. Let me just see here.
Because the other thing too is there's a lot of conflicting reports about when he was discovered and found, and we actually reached out to the person who showed up on the scene first, who hopefully we'll be talking in the future. But it was a truck driver or someone in a truck who discovered him. And then after that, it gets kind of very muddled on who showed up after that. There was some volunteer fire people that showed up, and then some of the kids from the party showed up. So we're still trying to, even after 9 months, the information is still kind of blurry. And right. Online, you get a lot of information. And, this case is being heavily covered by the press. And so I think a lot of it, they're getting it from some Facebook, chatter and stuff like that. So there's a lot of misinformation flowing around. Right. But what I wanted to talk to you about is how long, when you go to a scene, say you were the one that showed up in the scene and you were the deputy coroner, you would show up on that. Talk us through what you would do in a situation like this, because I just want to kind of get it like a parallel here.
Okay, so the first thing you're going to do, excuse me, upon arriving to the scene, is you're going to make a pronouncement of death. At least in our state, the coroners did that. Mm-hmm. So after that's done, you're going to coordinate with the police or the fire, whoever is there on site, and do an on-site investigation that would consist of measurements, photographs, copious notes, recording what they're wearing, how they're found, where they're found, everybody that's involved. If there's, you would have an accident reconstructionist come out. Usually, in our case, it would be someone from the state police who was trained in doing that would do all those kind of measurements to reconstruct the accident. And then you secure the body and take it back for autopsy.
And how long does it usually take, that process take, before you can actually secure the body?
Well, it matters. It depends, but it takes a while. I mean, you're talking hours sometime,
Mhm.
depending on the severity of the scene and the complexity of the scene.
Uh,
So one of my cases, just to give you an idea, one of my cases as a CSI was along I-57, which is probably the most traveled roadway north-south in Illinois. And it involved the death of 5 people. And 2 of them were police officers. One was an innocent ride-along, and the others were brothers who were coming out of Michigan. And I arrived on scene at 9:30 that night, on Saturday night. I left the scene at 5:30 the next day afternoon. That was the first time I actually even left the scene. And then I spent literally, in that particular case, a month going back onto the scene. But that was a huge case.
yeah.
But it would be, even on a simple traffic accident, you're talking hours.
Yeah, this is, and we got to verify this, but we've been told that, that a coroner came out from the ME's office, was there for a period of time, and then left. And I guess they had to go to another scene, and then a different someone came much later on. And apparently his body was not removed until 7 p.m. that night.
That's a long time to be on site, laying out there.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I thought that was kind of uncharacteristic. I mean, it may have been because of as we know in that area, you're familiar with that area too, having helped with Mulling Colt. I mean, they have volunteer fire department, they have, local police departments, sheriff departments that are very kind of, they don't have the resources that like an Illinois State Police would have. OHP was there, but I think that there was also some other entities there as well. But I thought and it just may mean that they just had a low bandwidth to handle this. Right. But I thought that was kind of interesting that he wasn't removed. And, and if we're wrong, please, people tell us we're wrong. But based upon what we're being told is that it was 7 p.m. Noah's body was removed, which we thought was a little long.
That's a long time. We would normally try to work if the body was a part of a larger scene, we would work the body first after we did our overall measurements, after we did our overall sketches, after we did our overall photographs, and we had an idea of where we were going. We would always work our bodies first and get them off and out of the scene. But you know what, that's people, and it could be a thing of resources. You never know. And if there was any question, I guess I would say I'd rather see them leave it to get all the correct evidence than to rush through it and miss something.
Well, I think after OHP showed up and they realized it looked suspicious, maybe they wanted to slow it down a little bit and get all the information. But still, and we can verify that with them.
And that's a good thing. Yeah, that's a good thing, because this would be, departments don't often take as much time when they think they know what happened. They think it was a traffic accident. They think it was a suicide, and they don't take the time and work it as a homicide from the beginning, which is what we always tried to do.
Yeah. Anything else there that kind of stood out to you with this? I mean, you went over a lot, but is there anything else that kind of got your...
No, but now that you mention it, and I'm trying to remember if I saw it, actually, let me just read you a section of this.
Sure.
The decedent was a 19-year-old male who was found on the southbound side of a highway by a passing truck driver on September 4th, 2023 at approximately 05:53 hours. He was naked and was only wearing unmatching shoes. There was a pair of shorts found several feet from the decedent and was reported to be his. There was a
How the heck did his shorts get off of his body?
How about that? Well, I will tell you, accidents can do that, but for his shoes to be on him and his shorts to be off of him, that's not very common at all. Normally on any type of collision, even inside cars, shoes go off first. You're knocked out of your shoes almost always when it's any type of a pretty good collision.
Yeah.
So, and they also found some other things there that we don't have to go into, but
well, the other thing I thought was interesting is his teeth too.
His teeth, were knocked. Some of them were knocked out. Some of them were inside his mouth cavity, which, he took a beating, and I say that generically because I don't know if he was beaten, but he was damaged 360, and that's fairly unusual.
For an accident.
Yeah, even for something nefarious, it's like I said, to me, it looks like he was drugged, but it didn't mention anything as to where there might have been injuries about any extremities, but to damage his body to the extent it's damaged, and it's completely around with severe head injuries and severe torso injuries. His extremities were actually, as I read this report, less injured than any other part of than the rest of his body. His torso and his head took the worst, but the torso took a lot too.
So nothing on his arm, but little to his arms and legs.
Right.
That's interesting.
Abrasions mostly. I mean, there were abrasions on his arms and legs, but they weren't significant according to this report, like the body was, like the torso was damaged, the internal damage. I mean, he was both lungs were collapsed. Both lungs were lacerated. His inner organs were lacerated. Like I said, it's a horrendous injuries.
Yeah.
And they all happened then.
Yeah.
So,
because we didn't know. I mean, because we have video evidence of him that night where he wasn't injured.
Right.
It's
a sad thing. I'm telling you, this is a horrible report to read.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's brutal.
It really is. So, I don't know. I am curious now. The postmortem lividity is interesting with how he was found on the roadway.
Mm-hmm.
Because just in that one, it seems he said he was contorted. So his extremities were, it sounded like facing different directions or whatever. But his face it didn't seem like he was on his back.
Yeah.
But the lividity's on his back. So that means that if he was moved, he had to have been moved shortly after death, or the lividity would have been partial or set in the position that he was initially. And then you would see it in another place. That's how you can tell if a body was moved after death.
Explain for our audience the term lividity.
So it's called livor mortis. We call it lividity. It's actually very simple. It's the blood in the body that's left will settle after death, after the heart stops beating and it's no longer pumping that blood through your veins and arteries. The blood will settle to its lowest point. So I'll give you an example. If you find a body lying on its back and the front of them is a different color, like usually a deep pink or a purplish color, that means that body was initially, when in death, was on its stomach and somebody turned it over to its back.
Oh, okay.
Now, in this case, the lividity would show if he was on his back and he wasn't, and lividity doesn't set right away. So you've got some time to move a body, but not a long time. 15 minutes, it'll start to set after about 15 minutes. And then it gets brighter and darker as the time goes. And then once it's set, it's permanent. It's not going to move. So what will happen is if they're on their back, for instance, most of their back posterior side will be that deep purple color. But wherever they're in contact with the ground or whatever they're up against, those points will be white. So you can see where their shoulder blades or their hip bones, excuse me, are touching.
Need some water?
I do.
Yeah, grab some water.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. We gotta do the same thing.
So that's how you can tell if somebody's been messing with the body, usually. But if somebody comes along and it's kind of shortly after death and they move them, you won't know the difference.
Got it. And we don't know what happened at those when they first got there. We've heard conflicting reports because initially we were told that he was like in a fetal position, and then
I mean, it even says that in the report, doesn't it?
No, let's see. No, it doesn't say anything about the position he was found. Only what he was
At the beginning,
wearing.
you said something about fetal position too. That's why I was curious.
No, it said he was found on the southbound side of a highway. He was naked and was only wearing unmatching shoes. And then the pair of shorts found several feet from the decedent. I'm so sorry.
it's okay. I need a little water myself. Yeah, no, it's really confusing, this case. And we've only been on it for, a couple weeks now, and we're getting a lot of information that's coming in from a lot of different places. And, this is getting a lot of attention in news outlets and on, there's like a bunch of Facebook groups now, people talking about this. And so it's really hard to kind of see the forest through the trees. But the key is like, we haven't gotten definitive of when he was initially found. We've heard different reports about that. There are screenshots of some people on Facebook talking about him. This one girl saying he was missing. What was interesting is that, because you helped us with Molly and Colt, and you went through all those phone records and stuff like that. And I remember when we were talking about, because it was like a party that weekend as well, that they went missing. And then a bunch of people's Facebook accounts got scrubbed literally the day after they went missing.
Right.
Apparently this has happened with this case as well. Everybody went, because now kids, they post everything. I mean, this was
Right.
Molly and Colt was like 11 years ago, and they posted a lot. Now everybody posts everything. They go live, they go Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram. And we thought it was interesting how that same kind of practice kind of happened with people in the party, which we thought was interesting.
Yeah, there are a lot of similarities, actually.
Yeah, and just the county over. And the other thing is, I think we showed you, I think we sent you a picture, like an overhead of where the house and the where the road is. It's like not that far.
No, it's right there.
And even though it was late at night, if there was an accident or someone hit, I think someone would have heard something, because not everybody was asleep in that house that we know of.
Yeah,
so that's another thing.
Right. And I have one question, and we can talk about this later, but it's about who was at the scene when they found him.
Yeah,
or after he was found.
Yeah. What we know, just cursory, and that we know that there was definitely the truck driver who found him initially. There was another truck apparently that went past and turned around and came back. We're still confirming that. And then we were I don't know who called 911. We don't have any kind of registered information about when the 911 call was made, if there was one made at all.
There was. The 911 call was made by Tyler, apparently.
The guy, the truck
driver. It was
driver.
at 5:50.
Okay.
Yeah.
5:15?
No, I think it was 5:54. Hold on one second.
Yeah, this says he was found at 5:53.
Yeah.
Okay.
5:53 a.m.
Yep.
053.
And then who showed up after that? Before OHP showed up, we don't know whether it was some people at the house because his friend Jack was the one that alerted people in the house.
Right.
He came in there. I can't remember what time was that. I can't even remember what the time was. But he came in and he basically said Noah's dead.
Right.
And he woke up some
people.
people.
There's confliction about what time he actually did that.
Exactly.
There's a lot of
there's that screenshot of the young woman who put it with her face, and it's like 3:40. I think it was 3:41. And she says Noah's missing. So that was before. Was that before he was killed or after he was killed? Who alerted her that Noah was missing, other than if she was just walking around the house and she didn't see him? But that sounds like a declaration of something ominous.
Well, yeah, and one of the shoes he was wearing was in the house at that time.
Exactly. And we know whose shoe that was. And and it didn't even fit him.
Exactly.
So,
which sometimes speaks volumes.
Yeah.
Because most people, even when they're drunk, and he was almost 2 times the legal limit, but they know enough not to put on a shoe that's too small.
Yeah. Unless you're trying to get out of there fast.
Yeah.
And, based upon the politics that was going on at the party, we've heard the whole story about him not, he wanted to sleep in one girl's room, and she said no. And apparently he said something to her and she got pissed off, and we don't know what his state of mind was at that point. And then all we know is that he disappears, and then he's found on the roadside. We hear the whole story about, the whole side-by-side ATV thing beforehand, that he was driving that, he was on that, he was surfing that, fell off that, he got all dirty, they came back, they showered him.
That's just,
it's, to me, it's like,
what do you think about that?
I think it's strange. I mean, why? Why
Exactly.
would they? I mean, they went back to sleep after they knew he was dead. If you do that, why would you care if you showered somebody after they weren't injured? He wasn't injured. Nobody said he was injured, right?
Yep. Well, that's the whole thing. We don't know. We don't know the whole story about that. And to me, it's like when I hear it, I hear like, the whole the showering. To me, it's like, did they shower them after he was dead to kind of clean up his body, clean up any kind of evidence around him, or
But you made a good point, Jodi. Like, if everybody went back to sleep after they found out he was dead, why would they take the time to give him a shower?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I don't think anybody could have. He was a broken child. He was broken. I don't think anybody could have even picked him up,
broken physically, just
He
from
was
all the images.
physically broken from top to bottom. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying somebody couldn't have moved him. They probably could have, but they couldn't have done much with him.
Yeah.
They couldn't have tried to really clean him up. I mean, it's just, the injuries are just too much.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because they had a party at that house the next weekend. Same thing.
That's amazing to me.
I mean, what? And it was like, they were youth hosting, and there was quite a few people, I mean, that were underage. I mean, Noah was underage.
Right.
He was drinking. I mean, all his friends were underage and they were drinking. I think the person hosting the party was of age. I believe she was 22, but, and there were people there like 15, 16. We heard a story where there was someone who had to leave because they were 15 and it was late at night. So I don't know.
Nothing surprises me out of that area anymore. I mean, I'm not shocked, but it saddens me to see something like this happen, and it's still open.
Question about the medical examiner's report. Obviously, this happened 9 months ago. It was just released probably about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago. I don't know if they released it willingly or they felt like there was pressure coming from media to have it being released. I mean, how does that go? Do they just normally release medical examiner's report to the public?
No. We would never release a medical examiner's report to the public. They're just... It's just very graphic and very detailed, and it could, for a loved one, it would be a hard thing to see.
Yeah, it's horrifying for the poor family. It's just
The only thing I can say here is, if that head wound was the first wound, I don't think that he was aware of the rest of it.
Sounds pretty catastrophic.
It was. It was. And it followed from there. I mean, it just follows all the way down, mostly on the left side, but then to the right side too, So, like I said, it's all the way around.
So it was on the back of his head.
It was on the big one was on the, like.
So someone could have come from behind and hit him.
Yeah, I mean, they could have hit him from behind. It's hard to tell without seeing the wound. Yeah. The actual wound.
Why do you think they released a medical report then?
I don't know. Who released this?
I don't know. It was on, it was released about 3 weeks ago. I don't know when that, we'll have to confirm that. I don't know if the family got it and they decided to release it to the public, but was it in the Daily Mail article? Did they talk about that? I think they did talk about it.
I think they did after it was released, but I mean, it was released by the ME's office.
Yeah.
It was made public.
They may have made it public. They may have given it to the family, and the family made it public just to find it. But the family does have a medical examiner in the family in the adjacent state.
I don't think that's the family made it public. I think it was already put out there.
We'll have to confirm that. But
I'm surprised at that. I'm surprised that anybody would release this without a court order, being ordered to do it. So, but it's who knows? Everything is different. From state to state, from county to county. So, to me, no, we would never release this unless we had to.
Mm-hmm. So, based upon what you saw and what you've been telling us, that the extremities, his arms and his legs didn't have much damage to it. It was primarily the top, left portion of his skull towards the back, and then his entire torso. I mean, if he was hit by a truck, his whole, his arms, his arms would have been, his legs would have been affected, his feet would have been affected.
Well,
you know,
right, because remember, especially if he saw it coming, most people's instincts are to use their extremities to stop injury, whether it's legs up, arms up, hands up. That's why in a lot of stabbing, we have defense wounds all the time, up and down arms. That's a natural response. And he has injury, but they're mostly abrasions, and they're not anything like his head and his torso.
And it's a rural road, not a lot of traffic, especially at that hour.
Right.
We're talking, it's a 2-lane road, and people maybe going to work at that hour.
Is it a blacktop?
Huh?
Is it a blacktop road?
Yes, it was asphalt.
Asphalt. Okay, so
Yeah.
Have you seen a picture of the street? Picture of the street with
just what you sent me.
Yeah.
But
Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's asphalt.
So that, they maybe could get a match on whatever was, embedded on his shoulders, on the back of his shoulders. But that's not going to really tell you anything other than if it was asphalt or if it was blacktop or whatever, or dirt. Could be dirt,
Gravel, could be gravel.
Been ground in. But that's probably not going to really tell you too much.
Was there any damage to his face?
Yes, but not tremendous damage. He had damage from the large wound. He had damage on the same side to the corner of his eye, to his eyebrow, corner of his eye, down his cheek, onto his neck. But he also had some damage, the same thing over here on the right side. His lips were damaged, had injury to them slightly, not horribly, but slightly. The teeth were broken, both upper and lower, but nothing nothing as severe. If those were the only injuries he had, he'd be fine.
Yeah, that's very specific. Very specific. It looks like a beating.
It
does look like a beating.
It's just, it has to be more than a beating, because
beating, and then maybe they drug him out there. They could have beat him in the field or wherever they were, and they dragged him out.
Right. I've never seen all of those. Well, I shouldn't say I've never seen, but when you see all of those little pinpoint abrasions all over him, and they're very unusually shaped. It's just not what you would normally see in someone who was just hit by a car or a truck.
Well, I think they've ruled out the fact that it was a hit and run.
Yeah.
At this point. If looking at those injuries, though, if we rule out a hit and run, what would you, in your expertise, in your opinion, what would you say that they could be possibly from?
Well, if it was a beating, like I said, it could be a beating, and it would be a very brutal one. I don't think it's just a single beating. You know what I'm saying? I've just never seen so much damage to a body.
Yeah.
So I think it's more than that. I think it could have started out like that and went to something else, but it's just really a brutal event.
Mm-hmm.
And I would not rule out a beating. I would not rule out dragging. Maybe somebody else ran over him,
Well, that's what I was thinking. You have ATVs there. Maybe, after he could.
But wouldn't they have tire tracks on him from that?
Well, you would think. If any, yes. You should.
He had no clothes on. He had no clothes on. It's not like he was undressed and then went out. He went out with, just the shorts and those mismatched shoes.
Right, which doesn't make sense at all. But like I said, even when they're struck by cars, you will sometimes get whatever the surface of that strikes them first, you'll get a print, like a fingerprint almost. It'll be a pattern, or it'll be a shape or something that you can tie back. But without seeing the pictures, I can't tell. There could be something there in the pictures that will give us more of a hint. But just from the descriptions I'm seeing in this report, it doesn't say that. But from the injuries themselves, just to damage a skull is hard.
Yeah.
To damage a skull, it was fractured on both sides and the back. Virtually the whole thing had fractures. and it just went from there, from the C, from the C spine up here, all the way down the back, the ribs, the internal organs.
Yeah.
Just brutal.
Yeah.
Just brutal.
What?
But
I mean,
yet,
what kind
like
of?
I said, you don't see anything damaging, really serious on the extremities.
Yeah.
At least I can't
And
tell.
that's
it
the
from
thing.
this
If he was
report.
hit by a car, wouldn't his bottom half of his body have been affected? Wouldn't his extremities been affected?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would expect to see that.
Right.
I
That's what
don't.
I'm saying. It doesn't make sense.
I don't see that here.
And then what kind of force does it take to puncture your lung
Well,
from an external blow?
a lot. I mean, these blows were tremendous, to break your entire backbone from the back of the neck on down, to break a skull in two, basically, back here.
Yeah.
And then to break the top of it the way it was. It's just brutal injuries.
Yeah.
And would take tremendous force.
So I wanted to ask you about this. I don't know if you're familiar with GeoNets. Are you familiar with that? They said they did
Geofencing.
geofencing. They did in the area to, I guess, for all the cellular activity in that area.
Okay.
So I don't know
I've
what,
heard of
I guess they'd be able to track phones and placement of people and that. I think the substance of this case, just like Molly and Colt, it comes down to people who know something but are not talking.
Right.
So hopefully they're talking to all these people. I mean, I think,
I hope they are.
yeah. And we've heard that they've spoken to some people, but then recently we've heard that they haven't spoken to everybody, and some people had to actually call them to say, I'm ready, I need to talk to you guys.
Right.
So
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
But unlike with Molly and Colt, it seems that we probably know who the first one was that was on scene.
Mm-hmm.
We think.
Yep.
So that's good. We have the body. So that's good. The photos may give us a better clue as to what made some of those injuries.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. So all of those things are better, that we wouldn't have to rely so much on what people say, but maybe in this particular case, there's a chance for forensic verification and validation.
Yeah. Now, another thing that was interesting is that we've been conflicting reports on, because the house is very close to the roadside.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he was at the house.
Mm-hmm.
We've been told by online that the owner of the house said the house has been searched by police. And then we know one of the officers who's involved in the investigation, and I contacted him, and he said, no, the house wasn't searched. So I find that kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And we also heard reports that there was a lot of cleaning up that was done at the house, and that the house smelled of bleach. I mean, obviously they had a party there. You clean up after a party and that kind of thing. So who knows with that, but I just don't understand why the area wasn't searched properly, unless they just thought, well, his body was here, it wasn't at the house. For you as a investigator, I mean, is that enough probable cause to search the house? If he was at the house and he was found like a few hundred yards away from the house, and he was there partying all night, and he was with these people, and there's a lot of suspicious circumstances and people are saying stuff, what gives you enough probable cause as a law enforcement agency to say, hey, listen, we need to search this place?
Well, it depends on the judge that you're going to be going, for the warrant to, but I would certainly give it a shot. I think that, my first instinct would have been to just ask them to search the house. And can we come in and search? And you would think that they would approve of that. It was their friend. And if they didn't, it would give you pause. But I would shoot for a warrant for that. He was you've got witnesses that says he was there, and then he was missing, and then he's dead. Yeah. So I'd certainly go for it.
And then what does it tell you as an investigator if the people start, I don't know when they lawyered up, but they lawyered up pretty quickly after the event?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that just protecting themselves, or is that a logical thing to do?
Today is a lot different from when I was a cop. I would say today it's probably, well, let me put it this way. From what the little of that I heard, if if that's accurate. From what some of the parents did right after that, right after finding out that Noah was dead, I would say that that would be something that they would do right away, is to lawyer up. But I would expect them to get lawyers at that
Yeah.
point.
I mean, at that point, if anything,
Right.
I don't know, you got anything else?
No, it's just so tragic. And I wish someone would just speak up, because I'm sure that there's people who are at that party who know more than what they're saying, which is unfortunate.
And the problem
there's-
is there's a lot of people speaking, but everybody has very minimal information, and they're speculating, and they're
There's a
throwing
lot,
out.
let's be clear, there's a lot of speculation, but we don't know, out of all of those chatters and rumors and speculations on social media, what's true, what's not true. I mean, there's just so much here.
Well, I mean, this, exactly who was there when he was seen for the last time. And who was who was the one that reported his death, that. I mean, there's a lot that police know now that Molly and Colt,
we didn't know.
We had no idea.
No.
But there's a very small core group here who have a lot of knowledge about what occurred. So, obviously the field of suspects, or the field of what you don't know, is much smaller and much more controllable here.
Yeah.
So,
and it was a mixture of people too that didn't know each other, because that particular area in, I guess, Terrell is very close to the Texas border, very close. And apparently there was
several groups from Texas that
several groups, too. and some have been labeled good guys, some have been labeled bad guys, some of those kind of suspicious. So we don't know, but that's what we're being told. So who knows what happened? We know that Noah and Jack, who were best friends, were getting into it on and off all night, all that weekend. Actually, they got into it the night before, and he coaxed them back. And the whole thing with the golf club, his family member gave him a set of golf clubs shortly before that, and he actually brought them with him. And they were using golf clubs to hit like rocks and stuff, and golf balls in the field and stuff like that. Lord. So we know that there was golf clubs there. So we know there was guns there. Not that there was guns were any used that way, but who knows what was used as a beating tool or whatever like that. So there's still so many questions. And, when we talk to the family, the biggest problem they have, just like Paula did, and she had to do she still does it after 11 years, is kind of wading through all the information, trying to figure out what's real, what's not real, what to give to the police, what not to give the police, what to discount. And as we know, as you've been along that ride with us, Molly and Colt, I mean, you can't discount anything anybody says, because sometimes it's popping up. And so it may not make sense now, but
right. Yeah. I mean, it's a slow, tedious process, but you have to talk to people first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to get them to commit to a statement and hold them to it, or take it apart. You can't rely on what other people are saying. You have to talk to the people who were there. Yeah. And I'm sure they're doing that, but it just seems like it's been a long time.
Yeah, 9 months.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, Jodi, thank you so much for your time. And we'll definitely be checking in with you, keep you up to date on it. We'll send you stuff when we get it and see what you're like to bounce ideas off of your investigative brain. And thanks for helping us.
Thanks, Jodi.
Anytime. My pleasure.
Please visit our website where you can subscribe to the podcast, find show notes, and check out extra content from all of our podcasts. All rights reserved. This has been a production of 722 Media Content.